Hello, welcome to the third episode of our mental health series here on the CIV Podcast. We're excited to have Dr. Kofi Bonnie back and talking about a few different things today. So if you haven't seen, if you haven't heard his story in episode 1, we recommend checking that out. If you haven't yet seen or heard kind of defining mental health, the second episode that we had, recommend watching that as well. But today we're going to be exploring a few more topics, something that is very interesting and kind of more recent on the mental health conversation. So we want to talk a little bit about epigenetics and traumas that can be passed on. And then we also want to talk about this big important question that maybe you might be wondering. So without further ado, let's dive into that question. So first question, number one. Why is it important to care about mental health? Like it's a big thing right now, and a lot of people are talking about it. But why does it matter? Why should I care?
I'll start by saying it's an important part of our life. Your mental health and your mental well-being informs your ability to work, to participate in activities of daily living, and to contribute to the community and the society. If you are not mentally well, your general health outcomes will be compromised. You cannot contribute to your family, and you cannot contribute to the larger community. And I think in my previous episode, I tried to define what mental health is. That's the state, and mental well-being. And I still lean towards that understanding that it is the harmony between your biological factors, that's your structures. It is the harmony between your social factors, that is your family, yourself, your community, and your psychological factors, the well-being of your mood, emotions, your behaviors. And it is also your ability to work, enjoy life, contribute to the community, all in this same harmony. I'll also add in that it's also culturally sensitive. So what may impact your mental health, or what may deem as mental well-being in this setting, may not be deemed as good mental health in certain cultures.
Interesting.
So let me put it this way. In the Ashanti tribe, I'm an Ashanti or Akan, when you lose a loved one, especially a spouse, you're expected to wear dark clothing for an extended period of time. You're expected to mourn. You are not expected to be seen outside laughing around and jumping around as if nothing has happened. If you put it in this context, it may appear that you are depressed in the Western context. There is a TED talk by, I think, David Solomon or Solomon David, that I think he's a psychologist. They went to Rwanda post-genocide, Western psychologists, to help them heal. And they quickly realized that they were making the population, the people that they went there to help, more depressed, because they put them in dingy holes and tried to do therapy, talking therapy. And what actually, for that tribe, worked for them was being outside, singing together, community. We cannot overemphasize the need for community and the role that community plays in our mental well-being. So it's our community somehow that also defines what mental health. Our Western world is very isolating, very individualistic, and it doesn't promote good mental well-being. So that is the context in which. So mental health impacts physical health. Mental health, if you want to have a full health, you need your mental health, and it impacts the community gravely. It doesn't just impact the community as we live in now. It also impacts the generations that will come after, what they will be exposed to. What the mental being now you impact the mental being of your kids and your grandkids and so on.
Yeah. So not everything that works for mental health and mental wellness works universally across all cultures,
Yes, there
right?
is. Yes.
But are there universals
Yes, there are.
for mental
Community.
wellness? Community is the number one.
Is universal.
Yes.
Even loners want to be around other loners. Have you realized that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They say that I'm a loner.
Yeah.
I want to be alone. But they want to enjoy the company of other loners. They understand me.
Yes.
People who I do remember when I was in school, people who use drugs
Mm-hmm.
and especially weed. And sometimes weed has this way of letting you withdraw. They
Mm-hmm.
want to hang out with other weed smokers or weed smokers.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting concept that
Yeah.
even loners want to hang out with other loners. The sense of community is universal.
Yes.
There are some few nuances
Mm-hmm.
that promote mental well-being in certain communities.
Okay.
So the type of music
Mm-hmm.
that you may seem as crazy. I don't understand this. Certain cultures, it is that which lifts their spirits.
Yes. Okay.
Or certain music that you may deem as depressing.
Yeah.
For certain cultures, it lifts their spirits.
Yes.
So those are the kind of the nuances. And music is a huge tool. Music is a huge. Our world is full of rhythms.
Yeah.
There's the rhythm of the sun, the rhythm of the days, the rhythm of. Just go to nature, and you find so many rhythms. We live in rhythms. I think the only thing that is not defined by an environmental rhythm is our 7-day week. But if you look at the moon, giving us the rhythm of the month,
Yeah, the month.
the year, the rhythm of the sun. The day, the rising and the setting of the sun.
Yeah.
It's all rhythmical.
Yes.
Just go to nature.
Yeah.
Hear the sounds of nature.
Yeah.
I have a cool story about music and the whole rhythm. When I was a student, I was asked to present something culturally. No, I volunteered to present as my last day at a very rich school, but they had a lot of profound kids with profound neurodevelopmental disorders.
Okay.
And there was a kid there who had parents of African ancestry, who's never been to Africa, wheelchair bound, everything. And this kid heard the music. I danced for this kid. I did my African garb and danced Adowa for this kid.
Wow.
The whole place was filled. I didn't know why I signed up for this, but I didn't know they announced it to parents. The whole hall was filled. I started dancing, and the sound of music. This is a kid who's never been to Africa. I don't know whether this kid has ever even heard this music. That kid moved out of his wheelchair. I think she's a lady. Moved out of her wheelchair and started dancing to the tune of something. It sent tears to all the staff.
Wow.
Tears of, they've never seen this kid do that.
Yes.
She could hardly stand, but was dancing to the tune of her ancestors. That's the power of music.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this powerful tool, and it's subjective to culture.
Very subjective.
Right?
So very subjective.
But I like that you're saying this community is this universal, that no matter what or where we go or what culture we're a part of, community is part of the core need.
Yes.
For the human psyche and the human soul.
Yes.
Right? That I like what you said, that even loners want to hang out with other loners.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I know that like in my undergrad, one of my professors because he assigned us all unique papers for the person's personality.
Okay.
So, and then for me, because we were studying to be pastors, he knew that I was like severely introverted. And so he assigned me a paper to basically learn how do you manage being introverted, especially in a profession that requires extroversion. And that was one of the things that I had discovered, is that through writing that paper, is that like we are intrinsically social beings, and that even when we are introverted and have this tendency to maybe not want to be around people as much, there are pockets of time where we need that socialization.
Yeah.
Even the most severe introverted people, they found, need connection with someone else.
Thank you.
For healthy well-being.
And introverts like hanging out with other introverts.
Yes.
Yes, just like that.
Yeah, because I know one of the things I always tell people is for introverts, because they always say, "Oh, introverts are quiet." And it's like, no, you get them talking on a subject they love, and they'll never shut up. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And other introverts understand them and can speak to those subjects.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about community, caring about our own mental health and mental well-being is important. And I don't think that this is necessarily the norm for society, that it's becoming self-centered or self-focused, but we can lean that way. When we're really like emphasizing mental health and mental wellness, there can be, I think, a toxic side of it where we become so focused on the self that we neglect the people around us. So as we're thinking about why should I care about mental health, maybe the next question is, why should I care about the mental health of the people around me?
If everyone is not doing well, you won't be doing well. So we are social beings.
Yeah.
We don't live in a bubble. You have to shop somewhere. You have to eat somewhere. You have to. Our lifestyle is so interconnected that if everyone is not doing well, we are all not doing well. And look at this. I don't want to talk politics, but look at any society that have tried elevating themselves at the expense of others and how it has ended up for them.
Yes.
So if we are not doing well, I think in the previous sessions I spoke about my experience growing up in the church and how people have supported. And I think my parents, in helping other children around us that came to our household. So throughout my life, there's always, I never had a bed to myself. You can close from school. There are two folks in my home. My dad has decided they should join us for a while their family situation is being sorted out. There are some who, because of distance, they just came to live with us to go to school. There are some that just everything was right at home, but they preferred to live in a house, and my dad accepted them. So there were periods in my house that I think throughout at least I don't remember the first 20 years unless everybody has traveled. We always shared everything we had. We always shared everything. So I give this example to say, if all of us are not doing well, we will not do well. And think about this. In the family, any child in the family who is not doing well psychologically or even physically, it impacts the whole family.
Yes.
So if we live in a neighborhood and somebody is mentally not doing well and plays music loud the whole night, nobody is getting a good sleep. And we know having a good sleep is very important. If we have a neighbor that have been shooting whatever, even we know that this guy is not well. He can shoot an arrow somewhere that is not supposed to be. You feel you are not safe. Just think about the let's look at the Average Childhood Events Study by Vincent Felitti, Dr. Vincent Felitti and Robert Ander, where they looked at things that causes enough stress that triggers our stress response systems. One of this is emotional abuse, neglect. We know in some form of abuses, I would say emotional, whatever abuses, emotional, also all neglect. And also, if you have a family member that uses substance or is incarcerated, it impacts your mental health.
Wow.
So the emphasis on community cannot be easily be living in a place, living in any community, even if you're a loner, everything that impacts the community will impact you. And that is one more reason why we have to take care of our mental health, not just for ourselves, but the mental health of everybody should be important to us.
Yeah. I love what you said. I think thinking back to episode 1, when we were talking about parents and how do we become the community and the support for our kids. And you said, as we mentor and guide other children, that because those children have greater influence on our children, some of the best things we can do is be there for the other kids.
Yep.
That as we promote the well-being of the people around us, then the people in our immediate circle that we might have a more natural concern for are inevitably going to benefit from the fact that we've poured into other people around them.
Yep.
Wow.
I can give so many examples of why we should take care of our mental health. So many examples. While I was in a boarding school, I had a colleague that had early onset of psychosis, who would talk to himself the whole day. Anybody around cannot sleep. And if you don't sleep well, you can't function well at school, the following classroom. We love this guy to bits. He's a really smart boy, but somehow developed early onset of psychosis. I know about people that, due to their psychotic processes, have done things that they were not supposed to do, whether it's abuse, whether it's neglect, whether it's hurting somebody. But it causes fear. And you know what fear does? Fear alone causes anxiety. It can causes phobias. It can causes PTSDs. So look at all these things that one person can cause.
Yeah.
A typical example is a pilot. A couple of years ago, a pilot who was depressed decided to crash the plane. And on that plane, this is happening in Europe, just about, I'll say about 6 or so years ago. I've forgotten. But it's a German pilot.
Yeah.
The number of people that it impacted, the EMS services that went to collect the bodies of, there were 2 schools on that plane. 2 group of school children.
Wow.
2 school children were on that plane.
Yeah.
The impact to every family.
Yes.
The impact to the community, that this family. The colleagues of the people's children.
Yeah.
The farmers, even who saw the plane coming down. Some were so terrorized they could not farm again.
Wow.
And the post-traumatic stress disorder, that's the EMS attendants, those who worked in the ambulance and fire service to collect all these bodies from the field. Some could not go back to doing work again. So the impact of behavioral health or mental health, sadly, I think with time, people are putting premium or understanding it. But I tell people always, if you are to spend resources, look at it very seriously.
Wow.
That is why some places have actually decided to put special budget for behavioral health, special budget for loneliness. It's all intertwined. All intertwined, yes.
And the crazy thing is that, we're going to talk about a bit more in just a minute, is that when we're talking about these things that affect not just us, but the community, we're not just talking about the present moment.
Yes.
We're not just talking about, the life that we live in our lifespan. We're also talking about the future. We're talking about the past that have influenced our present, right? And so I know that's kind of a recent study in science right now. So I think I was researching it earlier, that the study of genetics started around the mid 19th century, so around like the 1800s. But the study of epigenetics is more recent. And epigenetics as a term, I think it was coined in 1947, so it was somewhere in the late 40s. So we've only got about like 80 years, 80, 60, no, 80 years, or less of where we're starting to explore this thing called epigenetics, this concept. So tell us a little bit about what is epigenetics and how does that relate to generational trauma and how does it affect families and communities?
Yes, I'm no expert. Let me first say, I'm no expert in epigenetics, but this is my humble knowledge of what I know now, that our behaviors, our environment directly impacts our genes. And our genes is the material that transfers information from one generation to the other generation.
Yes.
There are disorders, there are sicknesses that are transferred through the genes. And we know there are genetic markers that you inherit that will give you the persona that you have. It's not just your physical abilities, but also your behavior and your emotions. You inherit some of these things. We know that your environment and some of the behaviors that alters one's genes. So let me give an example to this. Trauma is known to either shorten or lengthen your telomeres. These are a genetic structure. That is transferred to another generation. And as we explore epigenetics, some of the things that one of the studies that I would like to highlight was the study I mentioned from Robert Under and Vincent Felletti. I don't know which one worked at CDC and the other one worked with Kaiser Permanente in California. But for a population in part of California, I think in the Bay Area or so, where it was predominantly a Caucasian population. 67% or so were thought to have one form of an ACE. And ACE is an adverse childhood event. And usually I talked about the neglect, is the abuse, is the presence of having somebody who uses substances present. Every one of this, I think there is a 10 score. Every one of this is one ACE. And when they surveyed this population, most people have one ACE. And they looked at the correlation between having an ACE and developing certain physical illnesses and mental disorders. And from there, I think there are other studies that have followed up to actually look at it really closely and carefully. I wish I knew the name of the father of epigenetics, but I know there's a lot of people who are now looking at this work very carefully. And they have realized that when people experience trauma, that trauma is passed on to third and fourth generation.
Wow.
There is another lady who has done some work for black folks. That is people of African descent. Her name is, I think, Joy DeGrue. And I think she's a social worker by trade. But looked at slavery, which was very traumatic. And its impact. And we see the impact even goes beyond the fourth generation.
Wow.
And some of his work actually suggests, why would a black man stopped by a police be so triggered or activated by just stopping to ask you, where is your license? Could it be? And they've realized that there is generational trauma. Slavery was not a walk in the park. Very traumatic. Seeing your colleagues being hanging on trees due to they call it the strange fruit or whatever. But it was very traumatic, and it's showing itself in generations for some Black Americans. And I'll pause here and go back to some of what this trauma does. It plays on the activation of the stress response system, the excretion of the adrenaline and cortisol, and the fight, the freeze, the flee response, and how it impacts you. But we know that studies also from people who experienced the Jewish Holocaust, generations after, have panic attacks. People who never, actually 2 generations after, are having symptoms of relatives that experienced the Holocaust.
Wow.
Our own Gabor Mate talks about his experience. There are a couple of Jewish doctors that have spoken about their experience, though they may not necessarily have experienced it themselves. Their ancestors, grandparents' experience is somehow transferred to them. So we cannot take granted, or we cannot take lightly the impact of our experience, how it informs or how it shapes our genetics to the future generation. One more reason why we should take care of our mental health, because it impacts the generations that will come after us.
So you're talking about like this generational trauma that happens, because I know when you talk about the father of epigenetics, like the early on, because I know there was, I think it's a French scientist, like early on, I think it's like around the time they're studying genetics, he calls this epigenesis, and it was this just controversial topic about whether things are passed on through the genes. And I was reading about it because they're saying that epigenetics is not a manipulation of the gene, so it doesn't actually change the genome code, but rather it changes how certain
It's interpreted.
Exactly, how certain things are interpreted within the body. So it's like they're saying it's almost like an on and off switch for certain triggers, right? That the stresses that we experience as people through life can be added. So epi is a Greek word that means on.
Yeah.
And so epigenetics is on top of the genes. That there are these things that can change the way that the genes are interpreted and manifested through generations.
You're correct.
That come, right? Yeah. And that you were talking about the telomeres that get shortened, that stress shortens our telomeres.
Yeah.
And I know Gabor Mate was talking about it, that like, this we know through science that shortening of the telomeres shortens your lifespan.
Yeah, mental health. I one more thing. Anybody with chronic mental health is said to have reduced mortality significantly.
Wow.
Okay, severe mental health will take about 15 years, 20 years out of your life with severe mental illness.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
There are a couple of factors that could play into that.
Yeah.
As we looked at epigenetics and turning on of certain things, it's still a new area. And if we, knowing how evidence is generated and how science interprets evidence, before we can concretely say there is a causal effect, the number of years of evidence that you have to gather, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So, for instance, smoking. I think I mentioned it took 50 years for us to conclusively say smoking causes cancer.
Yes.
If you watch old movies, you will see doctors sitting down and smoking with patients.
Yeah.
Because there was not enough evidence.
Yes.
To say
conclusively,
conclusively to have that causal relationship.
Yes.
So the current evidence is still, people are still can't easily make assertion and say you don't have fact or you do not have evidence to suggest that.
Yeah.
There's a building evidence. We will get to know more. I'm sure in 10 years, 20 years time, when we sit here to have this conversation, it will be a little bit different.
Yes.
In that we will have a better understanding on how this switch is on top of whatever we are doing. And we may be having different conversations. Yeah. But
totally.
Let us know. I think should let everybody know, we should let our audience know that there is such a thing.
Yes.
There is a relationship.
Yes.
We've not got to maybe the causal and effect relationship yet, but there is a correlation between your experiences, your behavior, your environment, and how this will be interpreted or how this will be added on to your children or the kids that you have from there. Yeah.
And your children's children.
And the children's children.
For generations.
Yes, for generations to come.
So I remember something that blew my mind when I was reading Gabor Mate's The Myth of Normal.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how, especially with women, right? When a female child is born, they already have all the eggs they're ever going to have for their lifetime. And so that means that even before that child has experienced any adverse childhood experiences or events, even before they've experienced trauma, their genome, their code for the eggs that they're going to pass on, which are going to be their children, have already been written and affected by the parent. Yes. So as an individual who, let's just hypothetically say that, you're about to have a child, whatever you're experiencing has already written some of that for your grandchildren.
Exactly.
So that we're not just looking at breaking this cycle for yourself and freeing your own mental health.
Thank you.
We're talking about breaking the cycles for generations to come.
Yes.
That's powerful.
That's powerful and impactful.
Yeah.
And that should inform the way we live.
Yes.
That should inform the way we treat each other.
Yes. Yes. Because I know when I learned about this, my prayers shifted. Because the things that I've struggled with in the past, that whether they're part of traumas or whether they're just, the personality stuff that the Holy Spirit is continually working on. As I was praying for, God to help me overcome this or overcome that, or help me with this character defect, or help me grow in this area, it really shifted my prayer life, because no longer was I praying, God, it's just for me. I was starting to pray like, Lord, help me break this cycle for my children.
Thank you.
So that my children aren't struggling,
Thank you.
With lust, with pride, with all these other things that we as human beings were bombarded with. Yes. I started praying like, Lord, help me break this so that my kids never have to experience the struggles that I went through.
Thank you.
So that their struggles are different.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
It's, I don't know, this stuff right now like is the stuff that I'm so like interested in, because it blows my mind. Yeah. Right.
And it's good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Because you're leading a huge flock. So I didn't mention this. I used to be a shepherd. You're leading
like an actual shepherd.
Yes.
Wow,
yes.
Cool.
Yeah. In fact, I used to take the sheep to graze.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But there's one thing that you will know. So we had my brothers will be laughing now if they hear this story. There were 2 matriarchs in our herd, and we nicknamed them. One was Grace, and the other one was Understanding.
Okay.
Understanding will normally give birth to 2 kids at a time, or 2 a year. And Understanding, generations after Understanding, are obedient. You can easily ask them to graze here, they will graze here. But Grace will normally give birth to 1. Yeah. And always will give birth to 1 stubborn lamb.
Yeah.
Like there's something that keeps giving.
Okay. Yeah.
There's something that keeps giving.
Yes.
And you know what? If you look at somehow, if you work with children, sometimes and their parents are okay. But this kid is not okay. Sometimes you just have to look at the generation before their parents. I'm not saying every kid, you're looking at every kid,
you've got to trace it back. No.
But have a lens of grace.
Yes.
Look at each one through the lens of grace as you deal with people.
Yes.
As you do community.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it gives nuance to the understanding of how we live as whole human beings.
Yes.
And I think that's where the community aspect for me just becomes so much more prevalent, because now we're not existing within generations, isolated individual, but in true community, you're existing across generations.
Yes.
You're intergenerational. So that, your grandparents and the grandparents around you, not even just your familial people, but the people around you that are grandparents to other families, like they're all influencing and can positively influence you.
Thank you.
To break more cycles.
Yes.
So that's where we really need. I'm thinking about this because you're thinking about the loners, the isolated.
Yes.
I think we can also do that within our own familial units.
Exactly. Actually, you started giving responses now. What helps to break the cycle?
Yeah.
And I've never actually pinned everything down, but I can. Yeah, what helps to break is 1 is intentionality. Let us be intentional.
Yes.
2, let us be intentional about how we live. Once we have the understanding, and I have traumas too. My dad was 8 when his dad passed. I never got to see my granddad. My dad never shared his stories with us till old age, like till I was a full adult. My dad was kept things to himself.
Yeah.
It took years for me to understand what he has been battling with. Never had therapy or anything with him. He's a pastor. He's done his stuff. Yeah. But when I had a deeper understanding of him and why he was so protective of us.
Yeah.
Because he did not have a dad growing up like us. Later, his uncle stepped in.
Yeah. To
take care of him. But then that was he was then matured. He had to learn to fend for himself. He was a boxer before God called him. So he had that tendency. He had that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's probably where your brothers get
maybe it is that. I remember going to Jamestown. There's an area, very rough area in Accra, and my dad evening. I don't know why he drove around there. And one day he just decided to share with me that I should look across those guys boxing. He used to box like them. And this is some rough area. Like they were boxing with virtually torn. This is some heavy boxing here. It gives me, as I grew to know my dad. So one of my brothers at some point in time could not figure that out and did not get on with that because of those experiences.
Yeah.
I had to call my brother and say, listen, do you know why Dad is who he is? And it helped me gain a deeper understanding of my dad.
Wow.
Helped me give a deeper understanding of my dad. I've had one-to-one with my dad that we both ended up in tears and prayed. Because he's never had that therapeutic understanding. So going forward, it takes intentionality.
Yeah.
Once you know the traumas you are carrying, most people get married, we fall in love before we get to know about our traumas. It's too late.
Yeah.
But once you get in love, you have children, know the traumas each of you are carrying and work with it. It doesn't mean that this person has so much trauma, I cannot marry the person because our kids will be condemned. All have sinned. None of us are clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in some certain cultures, they don't have even history of generations before them. Elders in the community intentionally keep it away because if you do not know, you don't think about it. It may work for certain people, but some people having the knowledge helps.
Yeah.
So you put in steps to mitigate that historical trauma. If you enhance your communication, you be intentional about healthy living, you be intentional about stress because you know that you come from a history of trauma. Try not to pile on the stresses.
Yes.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
You do things that are intentional, that promotes good mental well-being.
Yes.
I know people who have decided to leave certain professions or choose when to do certain jobs because of the stress they think it will bring to them, knowing about their traumas.
Wow.
They are selective.
Yeah.
They can go into a certain profession, but they choose to work in certain settings. So a typical example I am thinking of is a medical doctor who decided, you know what, I love neurosurgery or I love psychiatry, but because of the trauma I have inherited and everything, I don't think it's a good idea. I'm going to move into family medicine or something else. I'm not.
Yeah. Yes.
So knowing will help you plan.
Yeah.
Then you are also live purposefully. So you make sure your kids are protected. The need for protected time so they can have such discussions with you.
Yeah.
The need to teach them resilience activities. The need to, and if I say resilience activities, there are a lot of them. Sleep hygiene, the integration of music, the exercise.
Yeah.
Finding a sport activity. Not everybody enjoys soccer. Not everybody enjoys hockey.
Yeah.
But finding activities that will help them stay healthy.
Yeah.
The choice of food. The choice of even where you live has an impact on your mental health.
Oh, wow.
The social determinants of health.
Yeah.
The level of education determines your mental health.
Wow.
Yes, there's lots of variables, lots of access to healthcare. There are healthcare deserts. There are places that you live that you do not get access to good professional services. So all those things impact your health. I think the WHO has got whole determinants of health, social determinants of health listed. Now that I know there are certain places I will not live if I have my choice. That is why I choose to live here. So if you have, I don't share everything, but if you have, in my life, well, I had opportunity. My career was taking off in a really good way. couple of years ago, I had an offer to go and work in a particular U.S. state. I think I can name it now, Florida. The offer was really good. They were starting pay was $300,000.
Wow.
It was really good.
Yeah.
But when I checked the area and my family and the history of race and certain things, the money was good. My wife could stay home, and but we had to let it go.
You pay a different price.
You pay a different price.
Yeah.
You pay a different price. Poverty is bad for your health. Yeah. It's bad for your mental health.
Yeah.
But there are other things that are also not good for your mental health.
Yeah.
So you evaluate and make choices carefully.
Yep.
You evaluate and make choices carefully.
Yeah. That's important because I know, like, so this is tangential because, like, recently I took just like an ancestry DNA test. I just wanted to figure out, like, what is the thing that, where people come from or whatever. Yeah. And I know that, like, in it, they were like, oh, you can pay more for these different subscriptions and different additional information. One of them was like, do you know what, like, based on your DNA sample genetically, what you might be predisposed to? Like, so I know that there are people that do these tests that figure, okay, genetically, I might be predisposed to heart conditions or heart failure or diabetes or whatever, right, as examples. And so people then can respond to in their health lives. But you're saying that it's not just the genetic, like, physical health stuff that we need to be looking at to respond to. You're saying, like, let's understand our traumas.
Yes.
Let's understand what our parents have gone through so that we know, those are actually things that get passed on epigenetically. And then we have to actually literally shift our lives, like, not take opportunities in order to break that, in order to make sure that we're not going to respond to that predisposition in a negative way.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Wow.
My mom passed just 3 years ago at the age of 74. And I have quietly done kind of looked at her social and psychological life before, generations before her. Yeah. Got history from her sisters. She's got 2 older sisters, biological sisters and other sisters alive. I've had conversations with them. I know the trauma from my mom's side. I know the trauma from my dad's side. I'm not saying you should be preoccupied with that and fear and buy into the commercialization, because America will commercial. Sorry, did I say America?
The Western world.
the Western world will commercialize anything, everything for money.
Yes. Yes.
So be careful about that.
Yes.
But having the knowledge is power.
Yep.
And read, explore, study, and get good information. Have discussions about these things and make decisions, wise decisions based on.
I remember the first time that I learned about this. It was a few years ago. It would have been almost 9 or 10 years ago. I came across this article as I was doing research for a sermon, totally unrelated to epigenetics and any trauma whatsoever. And I was doing a sermon on Exodus. I can't remember if it's 33 or 34 now. It's crossing my mind. But when God comes in and he reveals himself to Moses, he explains his name. And he says, the Lord, the gracious and compassionate God, slow and abounding in love and forgiving repentance, forgiving those who repent, wickedness, rebellion, and sin. And then he says, forgiving those for 1,000 generations, punishing those, for a few generations after. And so as I was researching for that sermon, this article came up that was called The Sins of the Father, Epigenetics. And then it wasn't a biblical a research paper at all, but it exposed me to this, like, epigenetics, study and some of the stuff that gets passed on and through those traits and stuff. And I was thinking about that, the sins of the father.
Yes.
Like, there is, even beyond just the physical health, the mental wellness, there is this element of sin that we pass on.
Yes.
Right? That if we're not dealing with our health, if we're not dealing with our mental wellness, if we're not dealing with the spiritual things that we're struggling, all of those things can get passed on.
Yes, true.
And compounded.
Yep.
Through generations.
Yeah. I truly believe that. Both Exodus and Deuteronomy talks about teaching it to your children, to your children's children. And when I read it, I'm like, what if scientists actually read the Bible?
Yeah.
They will have a good footstep to jump off from. Because there is, scripture seem to suggest that there are things that are passed on from generation to generation.
Yes.
And the behavior, the sins are behaviors.
Yes.
Are emotions.
Yeah.
Are thoughts.
Yeah.
Actually, you think about it, since you can sin before even you act.
Yeah.
So your thoughts, your behavior, your emotions, those are the areas that you can sin. And it says you pass it on from generation to generation. Teach it to your children. Teach the good things to your children. Teach them how to think. Teach them how to behave. Teach them how to process this, these good emotions from generation to generation. This is a way to mitigate
the effects of
yes,
sin.
the effects of sin. So we have a lot to work to do.
Yeah.
It is possible. It is possible. I wish I've not come across any let me say any expert in this field yet. But I'll continue reading and see if there is any expert in this field that has researched and come out with ways to break years of trauma. I think I've heard people say there are ways to break years of trauma. And but intentionality is one. I know consistency is the other. And doing all the good things that you need to do to prevent passing things on is the other.
Yeah.
So if and teaching resiliency activities, I think will be another tool. So if you come from a history of maybe substance use, your generation break that chain. If you come from a history of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual abuse, you have an opportunity to break that chain. Don't pass it on. You come from a history where you have people living with mental illness in your family. You have the opportunity to break that chain by taking care of that person. People can recover from mental disorders. There can be full recovery. So help that person recover. So the chain is broken, the person doesn't pass it on. And also teach people resilience activities. Resilience activities help people be strong. And yes, what are some of the resilience activities? Anything you do for mental well-being is a resilience activity. You have to just be purposeful. Gratitude is one. Serving, volunteering is a resilience activity. Music, whether making, singing, is another one as a resilience activity. Exercise is a huge one. So all those things that we talk about resilience activities. Laughter is a resilience activity. And laughter actually is also medicine. Pass it on. We shouldn't be all serious. I'm happy during we do spend time to laugh. But laughter is medicine. Pass it on. I cannot overemphasize the importance of sleep. Some people have got generations of not sleeping well. Look for ways to break that cycle. To pass it on. Yes.
And it's this whole, if you want holistic health, there's a holistic approach. It's like all of those areas. You cannot just pour all your energy into one spot, right? As if you can just sleep 14 hours and then neglect the rest of the other areas.
You cannot.
You have to really focus on the whole being. The whole approach. Right?
Nutrition is important. I don't talk a lot about nutrition, but nutrition is important. But we as Adventists have overemphasized nutrition. So I tend not to talk about, especially with an Adventist audience, I don't talk about nutrition.
We're well known for our vegetarian veganism promotion that we have. But I think you're right. Like, it's been over promoted, and that's not a bad thing. But we can neglect some of the other areas that we suffer in. Right. And it's interesting because the more you talk about these different aspects, and especially some of the maybe some of the patterns that we can create to break the generational cycles, as we've talked a little bit about, what we can do to promote mental health and mental well-being within ourselves and the people around us. There's this thing that I'll say it in it's one word, that keeps coming back to me again and again and again, and it's church.
Yes.
Community,
yes.
right? That the church is the thing that has all of it.
Yeah.
That has community, intergenerational community, that has opportunities for volunteering and serving, that has music, right? That has connection, that has, well, hopefully promotes, healthy eating and good food, that has laughter, hopefully, right? If we come to a church that, has life and has youthfulness and vigor, right? That there is a place where we can find all of those things, and it's not something was haphazardly founded. Like, it's something that God from the very beginning has created for us.
Thank you.
That he's wanted us to be in community, that he's wanted us to be in communion with him and with others. And that's why when I'm thinking about Genesis, right? When he creates Adam, it's not good yet until he creates Eve, until he creates the diversity and the community.
Yes.
And then he says it's very good.
Yes.
Right?
You hit it there, the diversity and the community. We need each other.
Yes.
And in all our areas of service in church, we should carefully think about diversity. All areas.
Yeah.
We're taking care of the young people. We're taking care of the older folks.
Yes.
We have a ministry for older folks, single women, young people. Let's always be thinking about diversity.
Yeah.
Not diversity just in terms of race and those social determinants that you can visibly see and what the politics of today talk about. But there's a lot of diversity. Yeah. Diversity in even our taste buds. Yes, not everybody can easily consume vegetarian food and be happy and be present. Yeah. The tolerance that sometimes we need for each other, the grace we need for each other.
Yes. Diversity in thought.
Diversity in thought. Not all of us can understand Hebrew and believe that Hebrew should be the thing. Yeah. Not all of us have an appreciation for one type of music. Yes. So it is languages. There's so much. Yeah. Our world is richer. Yes. As you mentioned, with diversity and with inclusion and with Yes. It also has boundaries. Because whatever is good, the devil tries to destroy it and twist. Yeah. Yes. So we have to also have boundaries. Yeah. Boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Because I think when we're talking about that diversity, one of the things that comes to mind for me for church is the church is meant to be united, not uniform. Yes. It's not supposed to be just one palette, right? One taste, one one culture, one thought process. And that's challenging because it often is easier if we're all think alike and do the same, then it just becomes this like routine. But life is dull with that and unhealthy with that. True. Right? You need that diversity in all of those areas to really challenge us, to grow us, I think, both healthy, like physically, socially, mentally, but also spiritually, right? Yeah. How are we going to, I think of patience. How do we develop patience unless we have people that test our patience?
Exactly.
How do we have grace unless we have opportunities to demonstrate grace? Right? Yeah, that's so good. So to recap, you're saying things that can break the generational cycles. One, intentionality. Yes. Right? As being well, let's start with awareness, right? It's awareness of what's been going on around you. And you, like you said, you don't have to dive down the rabbit hole to get fearful and worried and overconsumed with it. But just have a general awareness. Okay, what are some of the things that can affect us? And then the intentionality. Well, what am I going to do now as I'm aware of it? To begin to address these things. Consistency. Yes. Right, you said, which is now, okay, well, how do the intentional things that I've planned, how do I do those consistently?
Most people start and do not continue. They do it for a year or two. Yes. And let it go. Plan for a short period in their life and don't realize it is a lifelong thing. Yes. Like they focus so much on their first 5 years of a child's life and leave their teenage years for somebody else. Yes. Now, once I think I'm my dad's child and I'll always be his child. Yeah. Even at my age, I do remember a couple of years ago, my older brother went home to visit my dad. Yeah. And my dad told him the gate would be closed at 10:30. He was then in his 30s. And he's like, my dad thinks I'm still a child. I'm like, you always be.
You'll always be his child. Yeah.
He says he told my dad he was going out, I think, around 9 with his friends. And my dad reminded him the gate will be closed at 10:30. So it is that continuum.
Yes.
It's that continuum. Yes. So continue. You've captured everything.
And then community.
Community
Is the last one, right? Surround yourself with people that are going to pour into you, that are going to encourage you, and then vice versa, people that you can pour into.
Yes.
People that you can encourage, right? So that we're not just takers, but we're givers.
And I'll say this is what we know now. There could be more.
Yes.
There could be more that we can explore. So all the resiliency activities, or all the activities that promote good mental well-being can be thrown into this to break the cycle.
Yes.
I would say add one more is do activities or participate in activities that will break the cycle. Learn activities that will break the cycle. For me, one of my greatest achievements in life is to learn how to play the guitar.
Yeah.
Yes. Took 15 years. Wow. Lots of YouTube videos.
Yes. But you taught yourself.
But I taught myself how to put 3 chords together. I think now I can put 6 chords together. And I play myself to sleep.
Yeah.
Like seriously, I play the guitar before I realize I'm so sleepy. My wife will be walking by. She's never seen anybody who enjoys their own music like I do.
Yes.
Yes, it's been a huge blessing. Huge blessing. Wow. Huge blessing.
Yeah, maybe we'll get you on the worship team sometime.
That's advanced. Yeah. But it's been a blessing. Awesome. I used to play for my mom every other week. And I do remember playing for my mom a week too before she passed. And the last song I played for her was It Is Well With My Soul.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I play for people. I normally enjoy playing for people. I go for visitations. I sometimes play for older adults, and they love it. They love it. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kofi. This has been such a powerful conversation.
Yeah.
And I know, one of the things that, like, for me, why mental health is so important is not just for it in its isolated self, but like as we look at discipleship, as we look at evangelism here at Church in the Valley, one of the things, it's Peter Scazzaro's book, Emotionally Healthy Leadership, Healthy Discipleship in Church. He says that you cannot build healthy disciples unless you build emotionally healthy disciples.
Yes.
That emotional health is a key component in our spiritual growth.
True.
That if we're not growing emotionally, if we're not growing, in our mental well-being, that we reach a cap within our spirituality. That God wants us to break through by allowing, emotional health and mental health to be part of the component of spiritual growth. Yeah. And so that's why these conversations, I think, are so important. Because if we're not talking about this, we're going to have all these pockets of people within our community that are stunted, that are stuck, that are dying and sick from the stuff that they're struggling with. And if we want to see real healthy community growth, then we need to address some of those issues in our church.
And let me, just before we go, there's something that comes to mind, because some may say I did not address those who've been emotionally been burnt in the church, and what if the church is
part of
the situation.
Yes.
As we said, every good thing the devil tries to attack. Right? Every good thing. He's attacked our marriages. He's attacked our schools. He has attacked our community. He's attacked individuals. So I'm not saying, yes, some people have been hurt in the church. We acknowledge that. And as every one of us, it calls on us to break and repair this.
Yes.
So that our churches are safe.
Yes.
Our families are safe. So the mere fact somebody has not the mere fact, but a fact that somebody has injured you in your family, that doesn't make you want to delete the whole family from your existence. I come from a family, there can be healing.
Yeah.
I know parents that they don't talk to their kids. There can be healing. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
Yeah.
So that we can be called his children.
Yes.
God forgives us all the time.
Yeah.
He grants us grace all the time. Let's walk in grace. Let's walk in faith. that we can redeem this relationship
Yeah.
and repair this relationship.
Yes.
So that our church becomes that healing community that we need to. I'm not ignoring the fact that it doesn't exist, but there is healing also in the church.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, let's be part of that healing.
Let us be part of that healing.
Amen.
Yes, I truly believe that.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kofi, for this conversation. We'll see you for our last episode.
Yes.
As we talk a little bit more about the intersection of spirituality and mental health.
Thank you.
I think it's going to be a fun conversation.
Yes, the last one.
To have. Yeah. All right. Well, this is our second to last one, but I really want you to tune in to our last episode. We talk about, again, spirituality and mental health. If you haven't seen the previous episodes for this topic in mental health, I'd recommend you go watch them. If you haven't seen the Faith Journeys series that we've done in the past, talking to some of the members of the church and seeing their healing journeys through Jesus and how God has brought them, a change of life. We really recommend watching those episodes, season 1 and season 2. But we're really excited. Thank you so much for watching with us. And if you found this conversation really helpful, don't forget to share it with someone. Send it to someone that hopefully they might be blessed through this conversation. But we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, we want to thank you for tuning in to the CIV podcast, where we get to explore different stories and topics related to faith and spirituality. As you consider how you give this year, we want to encourage you to give to discipleship and evangelism. That not only helps us with our podcast, but it also helps us with all the amazing things that we're doing here at CIV, like the workshops, the trainings, the classes, and the programs that are aiming at creating holistic, healthy disciples who make disciples. Thank you so much for supporting our ministries here at CIV. And as always, don't forget to love God, love people, and serve the world.